In a world that glorifies the constant hustle, the biggest breakthroughs often come from just pausing and reflecting. And this just may be the missing ingredient to your success. In fact, what if I told you that the key to growing your business isn't pushing harder, but it's pausing longer, as in like actually taking a step back? You know, if you've ever felt the pressure from the constant grind and you're not experiencing the kind of success that you want, this video is for you. So a bunch of my team and I at membership.io, including my two co-founders, went and participated in an event called 29029 in Whistler, British Columbia, Canada. Now, the premise of this event is simple. They basically pick a mountain, in this case, Whistler Mountain, and you've got to summit it a certain number of times, and that is the equivalent of 29,029 feet, which is Mount Everest. And you've got to do this within 36 hours or less. So in our case, we had to summit Whistler Mountain 8 times in 36 hours.
3 laps to go, just got to bang them out, and bada bing, bada boom.
Now, this event is brutal. It is brutal from a physical standpoint, like most people aren't climbing 29,000 feet on a regular basis. It's brutal from a mental standpoint because there are 100% moments when you do not want to continue moving forward.
I think I was just too dehydrated and like just drained in general. Not enough food.
And emotionally, you're wrapped up in that too, because there's a big part of you that wants to finish and accomplish. And then there's also a big part of you that is just so tired from battling the elements, the mountain, and even your thoughts. And the reason that we love this event as a company is because there are so many parallels between climbing this mountain and growing a business. You know, the fact that we're just trying to accomplish big goals and having to break those down, the fact that we're doing it together and there's collaboration and support, the fact that there are going to be hard times. It's not a matter of if you're going to face challenges, it's a matter of when. And being able to support one another and pull each other through those dark moments to get to that final lap and eventually accomplish it and earn your red hat. Isn't that crazy, by the way, that we go through all this just for a silly little red hat? But it's not the hat itself, it's what the hat represents. Now, the other big part of this is the time that we then take after the event to reflect on that whole experience. And that is where the big lessons are learned, where people begin to realize their true full potential and what it means in real life. And so for us, we want to do that as a team and experience that as a team because we grow stronger together, the bonds go deeper, and the relationships become even more meaningful. And so when we get back into, quote, the work world, now the things that we're doing in work and the challenges that we face seem so small in comparison to what we have done and accomplished together. And now we can begin using those lessons and really move forward collectively as a team. Authors Ben Hardy and Dan Sullivan wrapped it up nicely in their book, The Gap in the Gain. Most driven entrepreneurs are always focused on where they are and where they want to be, constantly focusing on the gap. Now, that can often leave you feeling, unmotivated, dejected in some cases, or just unhappy because you're always looking at what you don't have. Versus what they say in the book is one of the best things that we can do is look at the gain, looking at where you are now and how far you've come. That is what creates confidence, it creates motivation, and certainly creates momentum. And this is one of the big reasons why you and I as entrepreneurs, we want to take a step back and we do want to reflect on where we are and how far we've come. And so that's why reflecting is really, really powerful. And what I want to do is I want to break down and share with you 3 key lessons from this whole reflection process. Lesson number 1, action. At the end of the day, you and I as entrepreneurs, we always want to achieve more and go for the next goal. And of course, I'm an achiever at heart, so I always want to go for that next big goal. But one of the things about achievement is that you've got to take action. Like if I think back to this mountain, like I can have the best mindset in the world. I could be all motivated until I'm blue in the face. But at the end of the day, when I'm standing at the bottom of that mountain, there's no way that I'm getting to the top and eventually reaching the summit 8 times to earn my red hat unless I start taking action. Like you gotta take that next step forward.
Number 2. 2 for Stu.
Many times entrepreneurs get stuck because they're so worried about having crystal clarity around what that next right step is. But the truth of the matter is, clarity often comes from taking the next step. Because I can tell you on this mountain, there were many things that we didn't anticipate happen during that whole experience. Like one of them was the fact that it rained on every single lap except for the last lap. Now, in training, we weren't training to prepare for a constant downpour. Sure, we had ponchos and sure we had a rain jacket, but we weren't training with essentially like a garbage bag on ourselves the entire time. And so we were facing these crazy elements because in one hand, you're wanting to stay dry, so you got the poncho on, but when you got the poncho on, you're overheating underneath it all. And so these are the kinds of things that you can never anticipate or prepare for, but you gotta face them in the moment. The very first step is you gotta start taking action, because unless we started taking action, there's no way that we would have reached that summit. Like another perfect example of this, one of my co-founders, Awesome, he's a very tall guy, 6'5", much bigger than myself. So, as we were hiking up on one of the summits, I could see that he was really starting to slow down and he was really starting to struggle. And I said to him, dude, what's going on? He said, I don't know, man, I have no energy, I just can't move forward. And I knew right away, it wasn't that he wasn't capable of moving forward. In his case, it was a nutrition problem. So I said, dude, you just gotta eat more. Now, it just happened that I had a couple snacks in my pouch, so I gave him that to get to the next aid station. Once he got to the next aid station, then he fueled up. And at that point, it was just like the Energizer Bunny. It was just whoop, he just powered right up and boom, he was off the races. You're not gonna get the clarity of what to do unless you start taking some kind of action. So as entrepreneurs, what's the lesson here? Don't wait for the clarity. The clarity will come from taking action. So the second part of this framework is all about reflection. And that's really the core of this lesson in this video, is taking the time to just pause and reflect on the experience. Because that's really where the lessons are really gonna sink in.
They're coming. They're strong.
6 done.
To be honest, this lap is the only lap other than the first one that my hips haven't just been stabbing pain every step. It's been fantastic.
So for us on this mountain, there's obviously the lessons of breaking down a big goal into smaller chunks, So in order to complete this challenge, you gotta summit the mountain 8 times. So breaking that down would be each summit, right? But then even within each summit, it's broken down even further because there are essentially 4 aid stations on the way to the top of the mountain. And so in your mind, you start just breaking it down. Okay, I just gotta get to the next aid station and then I'll be able to get a drink, have a quick break, have a snack, refuel, that kind of thing. But then even in between the aid stations, there were little trees and there were little river crossings and little waterfalls, and those were like little milestones. Those are like little wins. Or there's the flag marker that says, you're at 500 feet elevation, 1,000 feet elevation, and each person had their own little markers that made them and brought them a little bit of joy as they were hiking up on this trail. So taking big goals, breaking them down. Then there's just the reflections that a lot of our team were sharing. I think of Tennille, and she was sharing that this was really hard. It was really difficult, especially when the rain was coming down and we were cold and we were wet. And she said she doesn't know if she would have been able to complete it had it not been for 2 other people on our team, Kyle and Allie, who were there to support us.
Seeing them and hearing them cheer us on was like an extra boost of adrenaline.
And so they would meet us at different parts of the mountain and they'd be cheering us on and calling us up. And then when we'd get to the top, they'd be there with a fresh set of clothes so we could change in the gondola coming down. It was all these little things, these little points of support that made a big difference from a mental standpoint. as we were trying to complete this challenge.
This is the end of my second ascent. Spirits are a little bit lower. I'm freezing, cold, hungry. This is what we came for. This is where the growth happens. Emotions are high, but I want to keep going.
And then there was, people on our team, like I think of Adam and Tyler, who, both expressed how this challenge in itself ended up being a lot harder than they anticipated. And when that happened, there's those moments immediately that creep into mind of like the fear, uncertainty, and doubt as to whether we can even do this, right? Like I think of Tyler, he said, he was pretty confident coming into it, but after that first summit, it was just like, oh my gosh, I gotta do another 7 of these.
Feeling pretty solid. Ready for another 7 hikes.
And so that fear and that doubt is normal. Like that is one of those human experiences that we all are going to have when we're trying to do hard things that we've never done before. But being able to push through that and get onto the other side is the muscle that we've got to train. Because it's not a matter of if you're going to face challenges in growing your business. It's a matter of when. And in those moments, do you just give up? Do you just pack it in? Or do you actually find a way to make it happen? And there were so many lessons like this that came from us as a team reflecting. Adam was sharing how much more respect he has for everybody on our team, knowing what everybody endured during this challenge.
I will forever hold these guys on a pedestal because you could see the mental grind. Like you could see people crying, people having breakouts, and you can see that people's resiliency really come out.
Now I know I'm not really selling the experience of 29029, but I'm telling you that the rewards on the other side of this are plentiful. And that's the whole magic that comes from just taking a step back, pausing, and reflecting on the experience. Unless you take the time to pause and reflect, the lessons are never really gonna sink in. They're just gonna kind of, whiz by. So for us as a team, what we've realized is we're capable of so much more than we really think that we are. And we have built stronger, deeper bonds as a group, which is only going to help us when we are growing our company and when we're facing bigger challenges. Maybe it comes from scaling, or maybe it comes from supporting our customers, or innovating on the product, or competitors. There's always going to be challenges that are going to arise that we may or may not anticipate, but how we rally together as a team is how we are going to get through whatever challenge we face. The third part of the framework is now to iterate, meaning what are you going to change or do differently to improve it the next time around? And the first time, we didn't have anybody else on the team there to support all of us as we were going up and down the mountain. The second year, it just kind of happened by accident because my sister, who was looking to do this with us, she injured herself a week before the challenge. So she wasn't able to do the challenge, but she did come to support everybody. And what we discovered was that there were people on the team who really valued the fact that Faye was at the top of the mountain each time we summited, who was there with food, who was there with fresh clothes, all that kind of stuff. So we took that lesson and we iterated. So this year, both Allie and Kyle joined us from our team, and their sole role was to support us and to capture this whole moment. Iteration also comes into play with my sister. Now, I mentioned that she has tried to do this before. The first time around, she ended up doing 5 of the 8 summits and then had health complications and she had to call it quits. The next year, she was all geared up and ready to go, had been training, was locked and loaded, and then injured herself a week before the event. So this was her 3rd time preparing to accomplish this. And many times, as entrepreneurs, we're gonna want to achieve something, we're gonna wanna do something, and we may not get the result that we're after. Maybe it's a promotion that you're gearing up for and you don't get the result that you're looking for. Or maybe it's a big client you're looking to land and they say no. Do we give up in those moments? No. We just iterate, and that's exactly what Faye did. She had a game plan, and one of the things was we wanted her to be in bubble wrap weeks before the event so she didn't injure herself. But she got on the mountain And she had already learned a bunch of lessons. She iterated. She trained differently. She prepared differently. She fueled her body differently. She even brought different equipment. And thank God she did, because after the first summit, she had massive blisters on her feet. Now, I don't know how she even continued, but she wrapped them, swapped out her shoes after that first lap, and kept on going.
I got some blisters, but I've switched out my shoes already, so I'm ready to go. Ready to go. One and done. Let's go get 2 to 8.
Now, some of us also experienced all kinds of challenges like mega chafing. I didn't anticipate mega chafing, but you get wet conditions, you get constant movement, and you get things happening that shouldn't be happening.
Now I'm going to get the chafing cream and lube up.
These aren't the kinds of things that you know unless you've experienced, and then you reflect on it, and the next time around, I'm gonna be better prepared myself. Every time that we move forward in any kind of challenge or any kind of endeavor, there are gonna be lessons learned. You gotta reflect on them, and then you've got to ask yourselves, what would we do the same? What would we do differently? And how can we improve this experience moving forward? You know, those 3 questions are gonna set yourself up so that you can build on the momentum of what you've accomplished. You know, there's a great quote from Nelson Mandela. He said, "I never lose. I either win or I learn." So as business owners, we wanna take a moment, we wanna definitely take action, we wanna reflect on the action that we've taken, and then we want to maximize the lessons that we learn by making changes. So as entrepreneurs, if you want to accomplish big things, number 1, you got to take action. Don't worry about getting clarity of all the steps. Just focus on the next right step and start moving forward. Number 2 is, as you move forward, take time to pause and reflect on what you're learning during that process. That's where the lessons are really going to sink in. And number 3, don't forget to iterate, because we either want to double down on what's working or we want to make changes so that we can continue to improve and make more and more progress in our businesses. With that, you know, if you're looking for a challenge yourself and have been thinking about a business idea but just haven't gotten over the hump of actually taking action on it, I want to invite you to come join us for our Founding Member Launch Challenge. This is all about helping entrepreneurs just like you be able to go from an idea to actually taking action on it and beginning to welcome your first paying customer. I'll put all the details and the link below in the description. Hopefully we'll see you there. Take care.